Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this emblematic space in the heart of New York City, where we will celebrate today the 2014 Spain Economic Forum. My name is Nayeli Chavez-Geller. I'm a reporter and producer for Univision Network, and we will inaugurate this forum with remarks by Javier Ruiz, who is the chairman of the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and also by Ambassador Alan D. Solomon, Dean of the Jonathan M. Tisch College of Citizenship and Public Service at Tufts University. So let's begin.
Welcome to the 2014 Spain Economic Forum. This is an annual forum on the Spanish economy, a forum to debate ideas, share opinions, and express views on the state and prospects of the economy of Spain. It is also a unique opportunity to learn about the vision, the goals and the strategies of a select group of Spanish multinational companies through the words of some of their top executives. We at the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce have always encouraged the exchange of views and ideas among executives and public officials of the United States and Spain. Shortening the business bridge between the two sides of the Atlantic is part of our mission. And we think we do it well, because we're an independent, bipartisan, nonprofit organization which was born in New York City 55 years ago. Coincidentally, yesterday we officially opened our new offices at 80 Broad Street at the core of the world's financial center, just a few steps away from the New York Stock Exchange. We're proud of being part of the New York business community, and it is precisely our independence and neutrality what gives us the credibility and legitimacy to organize a conference like the annual Spain Economic Forum, what allows us to bring together speakers and moderators of the quality and caliber of those joining us today, including Spanish Minister of Industry, Energy and Tourism, Mr. José Manuel Soria, and the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Economic Development, Mr. Kenneth Adams. Mr. Adams, by the way, speaks fluent Spanish. I was really surprised when I overheard him. So another friend of Spain. Let me finish by expressing my gratitude on behalf of the members of the board of the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce to those who have traveled from afar to be with us this morning, to the events organizing committee, chaired by Daniela Andaluce, and to our sponsors. I hope you will enjoy the forum and will interact with our panelists. And now allow me to give the floor to Mr. Alan Solomon, former U.S. Ambassador to Spain and a friend of the Chamber. Thank you again.
Good morning. Thank you, Javier, Chairman Ruiz, esteemed directors of the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Minister Soria, and distinguished visitors from Spain, guests and friends from here in New York and across the country. Let me begin by thanking the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to join you today. I've enjoyed a close relationship with the Chamber since I attended the annual gala for the first time in December of 2009, before I was even confirmed as the U.S. Ambassador. Since then, I've attended almost every gala, including in 2011 when you honored Victor Grifols, and I flew across the Atlantic for the cocktail reception before jetting back to Madrid in time to meet a visiting U.S. government official in the morning. So it's great to be here with a little more time on my hands and to speak to you as a former ambassador. You heard that I am now the Dean of the Jonathan M. Tisch College of Citizenship and Public Service at Tufts University. And people have asked me if I prefer to be addressed as ambassador or as dean, and I tell them that excellency will work just fine. It is also great to be here among many Spanish friends and leaders of Spanish companies with whom I've maintained contact and who have significant businesses in the United States, as well as in my home state of Massachusetts. It's great to be here with my friend Juan Rodriguez Inciarte from Banco Santander. I worked closely with Juan during his tenure as president of Fundación Consejo España Estados Unidos. Today, Santander is the largest bank headquartered in Massachusetts. Earlier this year, I was honored to join the board of directors of Mapfre-USA, the largest automobile insurer in Massachusetts and a sponsor of the Boston Red Sox. It's good to see Mapfre-USA CEO Jaime Tamayo, who is also a director of this chamber, and the CEO of Mapfre Internacional, Javier Fernandez. Many friends have asked me if I'm happy to be home and if it was a difficult transition returning to Boston from Madrid. It has taken some getting used to. I've learned, for example, that when I get in the back seat of the car, it doesn't move anymore. But like Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, there really is no place like home, and it's good to be back surrounded by friends and family. Nonetheless, representing President Obama and the American people in Spain was far and away the best job I've ever had. Every day, I got to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing our world: transnational terrorism, nuclear proliferation, the worldwide financial and economic crisis. And I had the incredible good fortune to do that work in such a wonderful country as Spain. It is no secret that my wife Susan and I fell in love with Spain, and we truly felt that Spain loved us back. We arrived at an interesting and deeply challenging time. In 2009, GDP had shrunk by almost 4%. In 2010, my first full year in Madrid, unemployment reached 20%, and as you know, today it is quite a bit higher. The financial sector then was under extreme duress. That year, Spain's risk premium climbed to nearly 300 basis points on its way to over 600 basis points in 2012. We often said that the United States couldn't solve these problems for Spain or for Europe, or even prescribe the right policies. But what we did say to the people and the government of Spain was that our country had faced its own financial crisis, and we knew that it required aggressive action and difficult policy decisions. Decisions that were not always politically popular, but were necessary to turn the tide on the biggest worldwide economic crisis in nearly a century. Spain has taken aggressive action and made some very tough decisions. Today, the economy may not be roaring back, but it is showing meaningful signs of recovery. GDP began to grow again late last year, and it is up nearly half a percentage point in the first quarter of 2014. It is expected to grow by 1% or more by the end of the year. Financial markets have expressed sufficient confidence in Spain's solvency that the risk premium on Spanish debt is now down to about 150 basis points. Still, there is much work to be done. Unemployment, especially, continues to be a major challenge. While the joblessness rate has dropped slightly from a high of over 27%, over a quarter of Spain's population remain unemployed, and that is far too great a burden carried by millions of Spanish workers. Having said that, Spain's burgeoning recovery should be applauded, as should the economic partnership between Spain and the United States. American companies have been investing in Spain since the 1970s, but in recent years, hundreds of Spanish companies have done the same on this side of the Atlantic. Just in the last few years, investment in the United States has grown dramatically. A dozen years ago, Spanish investment in the U.S. was below $5 billion. But since then, it has grown tenfold. Spain today is one of the fastest growing sources of foreign direct investment in the United States, and companies like Santander and Mapfre, Abertis and BBVA, and hundreds more employ nearly 80,000 American workers. Surely this has contributed to our economic recovery. At the same time, we all know that Spain's export sector is one of the sectors leading its economic recovery, and the United States is the largest market outside of Europe for Spanish exports. While these economic ties have remained strong, there is no question that the economic crisis has taken its toll. The sharp fall in Spanish consumer demand reduced the growth of U.S. exports to Spain, and American investment in Spain dropped significantly after reaching a high of nearly $60 billion in 2007 before the crisis took hold. Thankfully, as the Spanish economy starts to grow again, investment and trade between our nations are beginning to recover. But the crisis showed us just how important this economic relationship is to both countries. The world is now so economically interdependent that what happens in New York sends ripples through Madrid and vice versa. To a great extent, national economic boundaries have been blurred, and we are all doing business in a truly global economic world. That is why diplomatic missions, and especially United States embassies, now pay as much or even more attention to economic relations as they do to military and security ties. During her tenure as Secretary of State, my former boss, Hillary Clinton, would say, "We no longer measure the influence of nations by the size of their armies, but by the size of their economies." She coined the term economic statecraft, which involves putting economic policy at the forefront of foreign policy. And that has been a pillar of our bilateral relationship with Spain and with countries around the world. Because all of us here have such a stake in Spain's economic recovery, and now that I am unrestrained by my diplomatic role, although, as I'm sure Minister Soria will attest, as ambassador, I was never shy about speaking my mind, allow me to make a few observations about some of Spain's current challenges that are holding back economic growth. None of this will be new to anyone here, and there are speakers you will hear from later who are far more expert on these matters than I am. Neither will my comments be new to government officials who are trying to tackle each of the challenges I'm about to mention. But let me cite three areas in particular where more needs to be done in order to stimulate a more robust recovery and to find a swifter path to economic health. First, Spain needs to open its arms wider to foreign investment and find ways to attract more investment from U.S. businesses and from elsewhere. At the height of the economic crisis, a top advisor to the Spanish Prime Minister commented to me that there are only three engines of economic growth: public investment, which the government was not in a position to make, investment by Spanish companies, who are increasingly deciding to invest around the world, and foreign investment, especially from the United States, which he described as the key to rebooting the Spanish economy. Indeed, in 2007, before the crisis hit, annual foreign direct investment in Spain made up more than 5% of the country's GDP. 2 years later, it was down to just above 1%. And while investment has risen as the economy has started to recover, there is still some degree of nervousness and uncertainty among multinational corporations who, after all, in today's global economy, can invest their capital virtually anywhere in the world. There are still concerns about tax policies, regulatory stability, and even political stability. Despite many reforms the government has made and is planning, in the most recent rankings by the World Bank, Spain still ranked just 52nd in the ease of doing business, behind countries like Rwanda, Kazakhstan, and Cyprus. With countries around the world competing for investment by the likes of General Electric or IBM or Pfizer, to name a few, Spain must work even harder to protect existing investment and the jobs that they create and encourage additional business by becoming an increasingly attractive investment destination. Second, Spain must foster an environment more conducive to homegrown entrepreneurship. In the 21st century, I don't have to tell you, entrepreneurs are the innovators who are at the center of economic activity. Some economists estimate that in high-income countries, innovation drives as much as 80% of economic growth. During my time at the embassy, I talked a lot about how and why entrepreneurs thrive in the United States, while other countries lag behind in their support for new business ventures. Once, a former Prime Minister of Spain remarked to me that if you take a list of the top companies in the United States over the past 25 or 30 years, sure, you'll still see some names like ExxonMobil or Boeing, but you'll also see Google and Amazon, Apple and Facebook, companies that have transformed not only the American economy, but the world's. But if you look at similar lists in Europe, generally, and in Spain, the list of companies is quite similar to what it was a quarter century ago. I have met a lot of smart and creative Spanish entrepreneurs, some of whom are in this audience, many of whom you know, who want to start a business in their own country, but become frustrated by obstacles like the lack of venture financing, or government red tape, or unhelpful tax policy. Many of them choose to come to the United States to start their businesses here. And that's great for us, but it is not good for Spain or for Spain's economy. My third observation and suggestion, which I talked a lot about as ambassador, is the need to strengthen Spain's brand. When President Obama asked me to serve in Spain, I knew I was fortunate. But as a country in which to live and work, Spain exceeded every expectation in every respect. During my 3.5 years living in Madrid and traveling to every corner of the country, I learned what a warm, generous, and resilient people the Spanish are, and what a magnificent country it is. And as a Bostonian, I also learned how pleasant the weather can be. I also experienced Spain as a true center of creativity and innovation, in the culinary arts, in architecture, in transportation, in technology, and a host of other fields. I never lived in a city so dedicated to its art as Madrid, or in a country so in love with its sports teams. And I come from Boston, home of the Boston Celtics, the Boston Red Sox, the New England Patriots, and the Boston Bruins. So I thought, what a shame so many of my friends and countrymen back home don't know what this country has to offer. Most people in the United States, when they look east to Europe, their gaze falls first on England and France. Spain welcomes nearly 60 million tourists each year, but only about 1.25 million come from the United States. The minister and I were talking about that last night, and I know he's doing some work in New York on that very challenge. In most American homes, families think they're cooking with Italian olive oil, even when it is made from Spanish-grown olives. And in too many American restaurants, the wine list includes dozens of selections from France and Italy, but often only a couple from Spain. And as someone who knows and loves Spanish wines, especially from Ribera del Duero and Rioja, and especially from Marqués de Riscal, I know what a shame that is. It is not that there is not marketing genius in Spain. Witness brands like Zara, Lladró, Santander, BBVA that are known the world over. But brand awareness matters to a country as well. And Spain's low brand visibility in the United States is especially puzzling, given 500 years of history and the fact that there are now more Spanish speakers in the United States than in Spain. I believe that this affects tourism, trade, and investment. The government of Spain has taken steps to address this with Marca de España, to promote the country and its many fine businesses and products, but I think more could be done. I can tell you this, I'm doing my part. Whenever friends tell me that they're planning a vacation to Italy, I tell them, Italy is so yesterday. Visit Spain instead. I don't know anyone who has visited the country who has not been delighted and often surprised by the treasures they discovered. The United States and Spain have a rich history that spans the centuries. I was proud during my time as ambassador to play a role in writing just a few pages of that history and to help strengthen the bond between our two countries. I am delighted to be here today with all of you who I know share that goal as well. Through gatherings like this and the good work of the Spain-U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we can help Spain and the United States grow ever closer and take full advantage of the cultural, linguistic, and economic ties between us. Thank you very much.